Hi friends, so now we are going to talk about this very important topic called neurocutaneous syndromes. We'll be doing it in a series. So today we'll start with NF1 and NF2, that is neurofibromatosis 1 and 2, which are the most common neurocutaneous syndromes. So let's start with NF1 first. So NF1 is also called as von Recklinghausen's disease. It is the most common neurocutaneous syndrome, and the prevalence is 1 in every 3,000 people. It is an autosomal dominant condition, which is important to remember and a potential question. Also, it has variable expression, but there is 100% penetrance. This means that the expression of the disease, that is the disease manifestations, can be different in different people affected by this disease, but there is 100% transmission of this disease from a carrier into the next generation, because it's an autosomal dominant condition. So there's 100% penetrance, but the expressivity or expression is variable. The gene is very important to be remembered. It's on the chromosome 17q11.2. So you need to remember chromosome number 17. The product of this particular gene is neurofibromin. So what is the action of neurofibromin is very important to know. So here, as you can see in this diagram, this is the RAS pathway which activates RAF protein, which further increases the transcription. So this particular RAS is controlled negatively by NF1 or neurofibromin. So this has a negative effect. So when NF1 is mutated, or in people who have neurofibromatosis 1, there is loss of function of NF1, which leads to activation, uncontrolled activation of RAF pathway. So this is very important to remember, that neurofibromin controls the action of RAS gene. So what results is a hematomatous disorder which involves ectoderm and mesoderm. So ectodermal and mesodermal tissues are mainly affected by this disorder. So coming on to the diagnostic criteria of NF1. So there are these variable features. So to label a patient as NF1, we need at least 2 of these features. So we divide these conditions into cutaneous lesions, eye abnormalities, bony lesions, and family history. So first of all, if there is a positive first degree relative with NF1, we already have one condition satisfied. Then we need only one of the manifestations of NF1 in a particular patient. So that is one, which is the family history. Moving on to the cutaneous lesions. So first of this is Caffioli macules or Caffioli spots. This is also the earliest manifestation of a disease, which is a potential question. So we need more than or equal to 6 Caffioli spots, and there is also a size criteria. So in prepubertal patients, the size is more than or equal to 0.5 centimeters, and postpubertal it is more than or equal to 1.5 centimeters. So this is a highly specific criteria, and we need to remember the size as well as the number of these Caffioli spots. The next cutaneous marker is freckling, which can either occur in armpits or inguinal region or groin. Next 2 lesions are the neurofibromas, from which the name is derived. So either there are more than or equal to 2 neurofibromas, which are either cutaneous / dermal neurofibromas, or there is one plexiform neurofibroma which is occurring in a plexus, such as lumbosacral plexus or brachial plexus. So one plexiform neurofibroma is enough, or we need 2 or more other neurofibromas, which can either be cutaneous or dermal neurofibromas. So these are the 4 cutaneous manifestations. There are 2 eye abnormalities included in the criteria. The first is a Lisch nodule, that is again 2 or more. So till now we saw that we needed 6 Caffioli spots, 2 or more normal neurofibromas, that is dermal or cutaneous, 1 plexiform neurofibroma, and 2 or more Lisch nodules. So Lisch nodules are nothing but pigmented iris hematomas. We'll be seeing the figure later. Also, the other eye abnormality is optic pathway glioma, which is a pilocytic astrocytoma or a WHO grade 1 kind of tumor. 2 particular bony lesions are described. First is sphenoid wing dysplasia or sphenoid wing absence. Next is either long bone cortex dysplasia or thinning. And one more lesion which is not mentioned here is pseudoarthrosis. So we'll be seeing all these figures as we move on. So there are 3 bony lesions: sphenoid wing dysplasia, cortical thinning or dysplasia, and pseudoarthrosis of joints. So these are the diagnostic criteria. Remember, any 2 need to be positive amongst the cutaneous, eye abnormalities, bony lesions, or a positive family history. So this image here is a very important image that you need to know. So these are brown macules which are relatively well defined. So these well defined café au lait macules are very characteristic of NF1, and the criteria that we learned was either more than or 6 in number, and the size was 0.5 centimeter or 1.5 centimeter depending on their age. So these are café au lait macules which are typical for NF1. One more question that is asked here is regarding the margins. So the margins of scams or café au lait macules in NF1 are typically well defined, like described to the coast of California. In contrast, the café au lait macules, which are also noted in a condition called McCune-Albright syndrome, are quite irregular in margin, described as coast of Maine kind of lesion which has an irregular course. So this is important to remember that the café au lait macules in NF1 have very smooth margins. This figure here is showing the typical axillary freckling that we talked about, which was another of the cutaneous marker. This typical freckling can also be seen in the inguinal region. So either inguinal or axillary freckling is one of the diagnostic criteria. These here, the brownish spots here, are nothing but the Lisch nodules or the hematomas which are noted in the iris. So these are Lisch nodules, which is another important image based question. Here now we are coming on to the other cutaneous feature, which is neurofibromas. So here this is an X-ray here where we are seeing this multiple well-defined lesions, well-defined opacities, which are also seen in the soft tissue and also which are projecting onto the chest but are actually cutaneous lesions. So we are seeing this innumerable multiple well-defined opacities, which are soft tissue density, suggestive of soft tissue tumors. And here again in this VRT image, which is nothing but a volume rendered image of a CT. So this is CT which has been converted into a volume rendered image where we are seeing this projecting nodules in the chest of this patient. These are nothing but cutaneous neurofibromas. So this is CT and a corresponding X-ray image where we are seeing these multiple soft tissue tumors in the neck as well as the chest of the patient, which are nothing but cutaneous neurofibromas. This is an MRI image here where we are seeing, this is a T2 weighted image, where we are seeing that there are multiple, there is this lobulated large conglomerate sort of lesion where we are seeing these multiple components of this T2 hyperintense lesion. This is nothing but a plexiform neurofibroma. So this is an MR of the lumbosacral region. This is the lumbar spine. And this here is the femoral head at the hip joint. So this is the lumbosacral plexus, which has been converted into this large mass, which is T2 hyperintense, which is a plexiform neurofibroma. And we only need one of this to call it NF1 along with one other major criteria. So this is a plexiform neurofibroma. Now in this image, this is again an axial T2 weighted MRI image of the orbit, where we are seeing, so this is the ocular component of the orbit and this is the optic nerve on the other side. When we compare it on the left side here, we are seeing that this optic nerve is markedly enlarged in a fusiform manner. So we are seeing that the optic nerve here is fusiform. There is fusiform enlargement of the optic nerve, and this particular optic sheath, the surrounding white structure, is the distended optic sheath. This is the pathological specimen of the same tumor where we are seeing globular fusiform enlargement of the optic nerve, and we are not able to see the nerve separately. So these are typical features of an optic nerve glioma. So in a case of NF1, if you see such a tumor in this site, you will think straight away of an optic pathway glioma. However, in an index case, if you're faced with such a tumor, a close differential would be an optic nerve sheath meningioma. But the difference between a glioma and a meningioma is that in a case of meningioma, you will be able to see the optic nerve running separately from the tumor. So you will be able to see the optic nerve which has been compressed or surrounded by the tumor on both sides. And we can see calcifications, which has been typically described as tram track calcification. So suppose this is the normal optic nerve, we'll be seeing this surrounding soft tissue tumor with spotted calcifications. The pattern is called tram track calcification seen in meningioma. However, in the case of optic pathway glioma, we will not be able to see the nerve separately and there will be a fusiform, entire nerve will be enlarged. So this is optic pathway glioma, which is a common tumor in NF1. Now coming on to the bony manifestations. So here what we are seeing is, this is a front X-ray AP view of the skull. Here we are seeing in the region of the orbit here. If you compare it with this side, you are not able to see this particular line on this side. So this particular line here is called the innominate line, which represents the greater wing of sphenoid. So this particular line is absent here, suggestive of absence of greater wing of sphenoid, which is included in the umbrella term sphenoid wing dysplasia, which is typical for NF1. And this particular sign here is called the bare orbit sign. So this is important to remember that this is the bare orbit sign where there is absence of the greater wing of sphenoid, and this is one of the skeletal manifestations of NF1. This is a CT here showing the same thing where we are seeing that there is no sphenoid wing which is seen on this side, and this is the corresponding sphenoid on the other side, and we are seeing that this is the brain which is herniating anteriorly due to absence of the sphenoid. Moving on to the other skeletal manifestations which can be seen. Here we are seeing that there is bilateral bowing of the limbs, and we are seeing that there is a fracture with formation of a pseudo joint here. So this particular location of pseudo joint or pseudo arthrosis formation in the antero-inferior aspect of the tibia is very typical for NF1. So this pseudo arthrosis is also one of the diagnostic criteria included in the skeletal manifestations. So this is pseudo arthrosis. Also, one other skeletal manifestation is scoliosis, which is seen here. The other skeletal features which can be seen in NF1 include, although they are not included in the diagnostic criteria, these are the other features which have been described with NF1. So this is a chest X-ray, limited spot, where we are able to see that there is marked thinning of this particular rib. So if you compare this particular rib and you compare this rib or this rib, we are seeing that there is marked narrowing of this rib. This is called rib penciling. It appears like a pencil, thinned out like a pencil, and this is called rib penciling, and it's nothing but erosion or destruction or compression of the rib and consequent thinning because of neurofibromas which are arising from the intercostal nerves here. So the intercostal nerves run on the inferior aspect of the ribs, and when they'll enlarge and form these neurofibromas, they'll cause compression and mass effect on the ribs, causing their erosion and thinning out, called rib penciling. Here this is a lateral view of LS spine X-ray, and we are seeing that this is the vertebral body, and we are seeing that the posterior margin of the vertebral body is markedly scalloped. So there is this scalloping of the vertebral body which is very prominent here. This is another feature of NF1. Although seen in a lot of other conditions, it is one of the important features of NF1 called posterior scalloping, and this is due to dural ectasia. So this is the corresponding MRI image of the patient where you are seeing this T2 hyperintense. Now we already know T2 hyperintense is nothing but fluid, World War II. So water is white on T2. So this is the CSF fluid which is scalloping the vertebral body because of mass effect. So this particular feature is dural ectasia, which is also seen more commonly in Marfan syndrome but is also associated with NF1. So there is dural ectasia causing this posterior scalloping. So these are the other features of NF1. Apart from that, this is an exhaustive list of all the neoplasms which are associated with NF1. So we've already talked about the common ones. So just to revise, dermal or cutaneous neurofibromas are the most common and occur in 95% of the adults. Plexiform neurofibromas are very specific, require only one plexiform neurofibroma to include it in the diagnostic criteria, but are less common and seen in 30 to 50% of the individuals, and spinal neurofibromas. The other tumors associated are gliomas, and the most common type of glioma seen in NF1 is pilocytic astrocytoma, which is 80% of the gliomas, and 80% of these will occur in the optic pathway, as we've already seen. The other locations of this glioma could be in the brainstem or cerebellum or cerebral hemispheres. The other types, that is grade 2, 3 and 4 type of astrocytomas, can also occur, but we just need to know that pilocytic is the most common type of astrocytoma. The other rarer but important malignancies is MPNST. So these neurogenic tumor can turn malignant and form what is called as malignant peripheral nerve sheath tumors. Apart from that, they can have JCML, which is juvenile chronic myeloid leukemia. They can have GIST, and the most common site of GIST is stomach. So these are large heterogeneous tumors which commonly ulcerate and are seen with a higher prevalence in patients with NF1. Pheochromocytomas again are very common in NF1. Melanoma, thyroid medullary carcinomas and glomus tumors. So one thing to note here is that most of these are origin from neural crest cells. So it's also important to remember that NF1 has a predisposition for cells which are arising from neural crest, such as pheochromocytoma, melanoma, medullary thyroid carcinoma and glomus tumors. These are all origin from neural crest cells. So this is one more important feature that you need to remember. Now just to digress a bit from NF1, we are going to talk about this important condition here. So first of all, we'll look at these images. So this is nothing but a lateral angiogram, carotid angiogram. So this is the ICA and this is the diagnostic or DSA angiogram of ICA, where we are seeing that this is the ICA and these are the branches of ICA. This is the ACA, this is the MCA. However, in this particular case here, what we are seeing is that there is marked narrowing of the main ICA and we are not able to see any vessels here. In fact, we are just seeing a bunch of cluster of vessels which are nothing but collaterals. Now this particular appearance is called puff of smoke, which is seen in Moyamoya disease. So why are we talking about Moyamoya disease? So Moyamoya disease that we typically know of is the primary Moyamoya disease. However, there are a lot of conditions which are associated with secondary Moyamoya disease. So NF1 here is one of those conditions which predisposes the patients to develop a secondary Moyamoya disease, where there is narrowing of the ICA and the other vessels, the branches of the ICA, are supplied by collaterals which typically develop from branches of ECA, the meningeal branches of ECA, that is the external carotid artery. So here this is important to know that this particular sign is puff of smoke, which is a previous AIIMS question, can be asked as an image based question, which is seen in Moyamoya disease, and secondary Moyamoya can occur in a setting of NF1. So now we'll be talking about NF2, which is neurofibromatosis 2. So like NF1, this is also an autosomal dominant condition. The prevalence is much lower than that of NF1, that is 1 in 50,000 people. It is coded by NF2 gene, which is located on chromosome 22. So the trick here is quite simple. We're talking about NF2 and it is located on chromosome 22, which has 2 2s. So this is chromosome 22 for NF2. It encodes the protein which is Merlin. So this is an important question, that it encodes the protein Merlin, also called schwannomin. So what is Merlin implicated in? So Merlin regulates the membrane, cell membrane organization and the cytoskeleton based cellular process. So when there is loss of action of this particular protein, which is the Merlin protein, there is loss of contact dependent inhibition of proliferation. So the proliferation which was inhibited by this contact which was regulated by this Merlin protein is now lost, and this causes a lot of proliferation of cells, resulting in predominantly benign neoplasms such as schwannomas and meningiomas. So now let's look at the diagnostic criteria of NF2. This is again very important. So when do we label a patient as neurofibromatosis 2? So one condition, the first criteria here is either we are seeing bilateral vestibular schwannomas. So if there are two vestibular schwannomas and we have a first degree relative with NF2 and unilateral vestibular schwannoma diagnosed before 30 years of age. So either you are seeing a patient who has bilateral vestibular schwannomas, you can straight away call it NF2. But if you have one vestibular schwannoma, unilateral vestibular schwannoma, which has been diagnosed in a patient younger than 30 years and there is a family history, you can still call it NF2. Apart from that, the third criteria here is there is a first degree relative and we have two of the following features: meningioma, a glioma, a schwannoma, or a juvenile posterior subcapsular cataract. Now this is quite specific and you need to remember that posterior subcapsular cataract is associated with NF2. Rest is meningioma, glioma, or a schwannoma. So this is the diagnostic criteria of NF2. Now here this is a schematic diagram where we are seeing that there is this tumor. So this is the CP angle, which is nothing but the cerebellopontine angle. So this particular angle is called the CP angle cistern, where the vestibular nerve and the facial nerve will run and enter the internal acoustic canal. So here what we are seeing is that there is, instead of the normal nerves, we are seeing this tumor here, which is nothing but a schwannoma which is arising from the vestibular nerve. We are seeing that the epicenter of this lesion is in the CP angle cistern and it's extending into the ISC. And this particular appearance is the ice cream cone appearance, which has been described on MRI, where we are seeing this expansion of the tumor at the CP angle and then it narrows down as it courses within the internal auditory canal. Apart from that, we are also seeing here, which is indicated by these arrows, that there can be smaller schwannomas also which can arise from these nerves, which is either the vestibular nerve or the facial nerve, and can always not show this typical ice cream cone appearance. One more lesion which is depicted here is this particular lesion here, which is a hemispheric mass with a broad area of contact with the cavernous sinus here. This is nothing but a meningioma. So this is a mnemonic which is Miss Me, which is a trick to remember what are the lesions associated with NF2. So Miss Me stands for multiple inherited, S for schwannomas, M for meningiomas, and E for ependymomas. So these are the three lesions, that is Miss Me, multiple inherited, schwannomas, meningiomas, and ependymomas, which are seen with NF2. Now we'll be looking at a few figures. So here what we are seeing, so this is a contrast enhanced MRI image where we are seeing this large enhancing mass lesion, which is extradural in location, and we are seeing intense enhancement, and we are seeing what is called as the dural tail. So this particular tail here is the dural tail. So this is what is typically described for a meningioma. So a large hemispheric lesion which shows intense enhancement, shows dural tail. If we'll do a CT, we'll see calcification and hyperostosis associated with it. These are typical features of a meningioma. Here, as we already talked about, we are seeing the typical ice cream cone appearance. In this MRI image, we are seeing this heterogeneous mass lesion in the CP angle extending into the ISC with the typical ice cream cone appearance, and this is a vestibular schwannoma, and this is a unilateral schwannoma here. Had we seen two vestibular schwannomas, we would have straight away labeled it as NF2. Again here, the third lesion of the Miss Me lesion is the ependymoma. So ependymomas are typically seen in the spinal cord. They are central lesions, as we can see here. They are benign lesions, centrally located lesions, and something typical associated with it is they tend to undergo hemorrhage and produce this sign called the hemosiderin cap sign, where we'll see a hypointense cap around the lesion or a dark cap around the lesion because of bleeding into the tumor, because they cause hemorrhage. So this is a typical image of an ependymoma. So these are the three lesions that are associated with NF2. So this is it for the first lecture on this series on neurocutaneous syndrome. I must tell you all that this is highly important and you must revise this again and again. It's very important to remember the diagnostic criteria, and a lot of image based questions can be asked from this topic. And if you remember and watch this video and revise this video again and again, will make sure that you don't forget any of these images. Thank you.